Hello, everyone. Welcome to another forecast, our first for 2026. I'm Claire Moon, and we're going to talk about astrology, mostly about January, pretty much all about January. Um, I'm not going to talk about the year of 2026 because I've already done that in some recent videos. So go check those out, obviously. I finally made some content. I hadn't made content for a while. I finally made some like pre-made, pre-baked to your order. And speaking of that, I do have rising sign horoscopes too for 2026. So check those out. But today we're going to zoom into January a little bit. Usual order structure of things. We're going to talk about a little bit about December, which I'm recording this on the 30th. Excuse me. So we're wrapping up the year as we speak. And then after we're done reflecting, we'll move forward and look at January. So if you are meeting me live here, there is a chat on the right-hand side of your screen. You can speak with other astrology enjoyers over there, or you can ask me questions. That's part of the reason I like to do this live, is to just give people the opportunity to ask things if they need to. I'm not going to go through all of the dates of December, or sorry, of January. So if there is anything in particular you want me to look at, let me know in the chat. Announcements. Everything is pretty much the same. I'm still doing all of my usual readings. I have an astrology practice. This is kind of my little monthly check-in with people, but I do have a one-on-one astrology practice where you can get a reading with me, a birth chart reading, a forecasting reading. I personalize all of the stuff that I try to say here that is very generalized. I can very much personalize it, which, you know, the astrology transits are going to hit everyone a little differently. And by a little, I mean a lot. It's gonna hit people a lot differently. And there's a lot of personalization and individualization that can go on. So check out my website, www.aligninglightastrology.com, if you're interested in checking out that. I did, if you check out my services descriptions, I have added a new type of reading, and it's a big honkin' chonker of a reading. It is 90 minutes, and I go through every month of your upcoming year ahead, from wherever we're reading from the next 12 months. I kind of give you a month by month glance at what topics might be coming up, how they might be coming up. So you can check out that offering on my website as well. I think that's all my new stuff. No other changes. I haven't done any recent writing. I've really just been focused in on trying to get the 2026 stuff out. So thank Fluff that I did. It's done. Enjoy. Um, I guess only other thing, and this just blows my mind. Jurassic Park t-shirt, right? Like this came from a thrift store. And the thing that, like, first of all, incredible find. If you're from the 90s, you can appreciate. Like this is from the 90s for sure. It feels like it. And the thing is someone had this in their hand and dropped it off at the thrift store. Like someone let this go. But I'm also happy because that means I got it. I'm starting my Mars year. I want to wear something red. It's Tuesday, Mars Day. So, right, it is Tuesday today, right? Yeah, it's Tuesday. So we're gonna do some little touches of red here and there. Try to keep the spice level to a reasonable level. I feel like it's my Mars year. I very much feel like it's my Mars year. So what date is it today? It is the 30th of December. As I record this, we have the moon in Taurus. And before I get into the future, let's reflect back on a few things. So as there's only one planet left as I record this that needs to make it past this Neptune square. But really what we've been dealing with the last month is a lot of planets moving through this square with Saturn and Neptune. So, it's always so hard to talk about the energy of a mutable sign like Sagittarius or Pisces without talking about like the multiplicity and the scatteredness that can happen. The focus can get fractured. And it's hard to talk about that during the holidays because I know that for the months of December and January, everyone's attention is like in so many places, at least mine is. So, that's been going on. Uh, there's still holidays left. I still have holidays left to celebrate, but I do think that some of this scatteredness and just kind of way too many irons in the fire type of energy of the end of Sagittarius, this is going to be wrapping up here in the next couple days. So as Mercury enters into Capricorn, I think things are going to chill out just a little bit more even. But yeah, I've been noticing like some confusion, kind of delays, um, a lot of delays, a lot of lack of clarity about things, having to ask extra questions, things like that. I'm seeing some comments. Hello, Sam. Nice to see you. Happy holidays. Welcome. Let me know if you have any questions. Um, so other than those squares, another thing to note is that Mercury, Venus, Mars, and the moon are all out of bounds as December turns into January. So, what that means, just a little primer, is that when a planet is out of bounds, that means that in the sky, if like you look up in the sky, that planet is going to be really high in the sky or really low in the sky compared to the usual path of the planets. So that's like what we see when a planet is quote unquote out of bounds. What that symbolically means is a lot of these planets are just doing what they want to do, and they're not really they're not really being held in to reason or limits or what might be best practices. They're just doing their own thing. So, for instance, there's a lot of things I wanted to talk about before this. And I was like, oh, this is project creep. We're definitely going to be here for 4 hours if I talk about all of these things I want to talk about with people that are kind of ancillary to the month ahead. And I could just feel myself getting pulled in all these creative directions. I think that's one way I'm personally noticing it right now. If you have Astro Gold, this is maybe a little aside for people who have the software. Um, I also want to show you what I mean in here. So here we can see in terms of some details about the planets currently. This gives it their declination, which again is just that height in the sky. So we can see in purple, once they get past 23 or so degrees, they get into this out of bounds territory. So we've got Mercury, Venus, and Mars currently, at least on the 30th of December, all out of bounds. Practically speaking, you know, F around, find out kind of weather. Things might be spicy out there, expressive out there, have nice channels for your expression. That's how we're kind of entering into January. And I guess maybe last thing to reflect on is we've been having this really interesting exalted planet opposition for the month of December in Jupiter in Cancer and Mars in Capricorn. And I kind of wondered how these energies would be coming together because we've got so much enterprising kind of getting shit done energy and a lot of potential for success, a lot of potential for having successful outcomes of some kind. But there's also a bit of a difference in the energy. There's kind of a soft, nurturing quality to Jupiter and Cancer versus a much rougher kind of not as soft energy in Mars and Capricorn. So those coming together probably been pretty interesting. I have a feeling it's a lot of just all of the great efforts that people go through in the holiday season, in a season when you're going kind of bending over backwards to see family, friends, fit in a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. I had mentioned an ambitious recipe last month, which did kind of come true. So I think this time I got it right. And it wasn't actually that comfortable because, yeah, it's an opposition. Uh, I recently heard it was Benjamin Dykes talking with Chris Brennan on some horary class of theirs. And they were talking about oppositions and the nature of oppositions in a horary question. Or no, it was Rob Bailey. It was Chris Brennan and Bailey talking about oppositions in a horary question and how sometimes even if there's a successful outcome, it's almost not even worth it. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I had to make a dish for a Friendsgiving kind of gathering. And this was the first week of December. And I don't usually go to family kind of friend gatherings that often. I'm kind of a hermit, but I do it. I can cook, I can do things. So I had to make something vegetarian because it was a Buddhist gathering. It was a Buddhist-y thing. And I made plantains. But the thing about plantains, and I made practice plantains because total side note, recently, newly obsessed with plantains. They're the best. Fried. Anyway, so good. Um, so I had practiced and they turned out so good. And then of course the day of I'm making them again. And the plantains I got, number one, were not ripe enough. There was some dryness afoot. But I burnt them. They totally got burnt. So, okay, I was trying to do like a Jupiter and Cancer thing. Definitely ran into some kind of burning Mars energy, I guess. I had to go out, get more plantains, and it felt like one of those horrible timed cooking shows where you have to run around and do something really fast and like make something. It was like that. But the good news is that the second round of plantains that I got were way better. They were way riper and correct. And second batch turned out great, like no time to spare at all. But I did it. And I was like, this is that Jupiter Mars shit. That was totally that. So that was that was my thing. Tension, stress, not even that worth it, but good outcomes. We did we did it. We got there. So hopefully everyone's holiday season has been going well. Mine's been going okay. There finally wasn't a blizzard. Usually there's a blizzard and I have to postpone a bunch of stuff. I did not have to postpone things, really. Uh, Hello, welcome. So yeah, hopefully everyone is having a good wrap up to their 2025. I remembered one of my final announcements, and then we'll get into January. I'm actually doing a reflection event. Let me stop the share. I don't need the wheel for this. On the 3rd of January, which is actually, I forgot now. That's a Saturday. On Saturday, January 3rd at 12:30 p.m. Central Time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And that would be, I think it's 6:30 p.m. Universal Time. I'm going to be doing an open house, just kind of first come, first serve. It's all on my website, www.aligninglightastrology.com/events. But I'm going to be reading for people and basically just reading regarding whatever stories people have. So come with the story from 2025 or some event that happened that you want an astrological lens to kind of look at, kind of have a second look at it, a review of it using astrology. And in this way, I think it'll be a nice way to spend some time with what has happened. I don't know if the word process is the right word. That feels like more of a therapist word, but um, hanging out with friends and talking about your year. I want it to be very casual, but it's free. There's no charge for it. It's donation based. Like if people want to throw me like a 20 or whatever, cool, but you do not have to. There's no expectations. I'm not doing this for money. That's not the reason why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because it's a fractal of what I do monthly. So monthly, I usually like to look at the last month before I move into the next one. Same thing. Before we move into 2026, I want to look at 2025 and think about what's happened. And so actually in preparation, I haven't done my own prep for this. I want to find and think about some of my own stories and do that reflection on my own time. But then when I show up on the 3rd, I'll start off with one of my own stories and then we can all kind of share. Just know that it is a group setting. It's going to be public. It's like just an open Zoom room, basically. So know that that's the container you're coming into, and it's pretty loosey-goosey. So yeah. Uh, it's called the 2025 Reflection Event. It doesn't have like a fancy name. It's just very descriptive. Check it out on my website. Again, just show up at the Zoom thing. First come, first serve. I've got like one person who already kind of like called a spot. And the fewer people who show up, the more like if three people show up, congratulations, you get a third of 2 hours. If if two people show up, each of you get an hour. I'm going to be there for 2 hours. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a nice way to bring in the new year. And so with that, let's start to do that right now. My little list of dates for January. On the 1st, we're going to have Mercury entering Capricorn. On the 3rd of January, Cancer full moon. On the 6th of January, Venus Cazimi. On the 9th, Mars Cazimi. On the 17th, Venus enters Aquarius. On the 18th, Capricorn New Moon. On the 19th, the Sun enters Aquarius. On the 20th, Mercury is following, entering into Aquarius. On the 21st, Mercury Cazimi. On the 23rd, Mars is entering Aquarius. And on the 26th, Neptune is entering Aries for good. So did you notice the pattern? Everyone's moving into Aquarius. There's a bunch of Cazimis. And who is in Aquarius is Pluto. So all the planets are going to be kind of marching along here and meeting Pluto. And that is going to be one of the bigger signatures of the month ahead. Another thing worth noting is that a lot of planets at this last 10 degrees of Capricorn, before they meet Pluto, they're going to have a square with Chiron. And try and sextile, get into some of this outer planet stuff. So very interesting. Doesn't look like, you know, the most warm and fuzzy, but it could be very constructive, like usual. So overall thoughts for the month, we're going to have a lot of cardinal energy early, mid January. So a lot of planets in Capricorn. Of course, we got Jupiter in Cancer. So Neptune moving into Aries. So that this energy of beginnings, of new chapters, of starting, that is really, Gregorian calendar wise, usually what we're doing at this time of year anyway. But the astrology actually lends itself pretty well to that as well. So a lot of cardinal energy as the month starts, but as it ends, we get more into this fixed energy of more getting into a holding pattern of some kind. We got some void moons as well as the month comes in. So this is kind of its own whole separate topic. But in general, as I'm talking about these void of course moons, the first day or two, it's like little 3-day chunks. The first day or two is the one I want you to pay attention to. That's the most intense. And so these are days maybe to just chill, take it easy. These are the void of course moons, like the bigger ones. They're really only coming up in January and August of 2026. So there's only a couple months where we're having these next year, but January we have 4 of them. And do I have these listed below? Let me double check. Shucks. I don't. I think I forgot to put all my dates in there. I'll put them in the chat. Let's see if my formatting gets messed up. Do your best with whatever. No, it's not going to let me do it. Nope, you'll just have to wait till the post. I'll put all these dates below after I'm done recording, but we've got December 31st through January 2nd, January 4th through January 7th, January 13th through January 16th, and January 19th through January 22nd. So these were days during the void of course moon that historically in like a farmer's almanac, you might see them say, don't plant, don't hunt, don't fish, because nothing is going to come of it. You're not going to catch any fish. Your seed is not going to grow into a plant that you can use. So there was this sense that there was a difficulty in making things come to fruition. If you try to make a cake, it's not going to look like the picture, most likely, or the chances, you're kind of running into the wind. Your probability of success is far less. And so I like to focus on more low impact, familiar activities, during these days. You know, these are not the days when I'm going to start a brand new project, when I'm going to, is not when I would post a YouTube video that I spent 12 hours making. I would not post that YouTube video during a void of course moon because then nothing's going to come of it. Some people strategically do use these times so that nothing will come of it. So, say sending in your taxes. That's a common example astrologers talk about is sending in your taxes during a void of course moon. So nothing comes of it and you don't get a big bill or something like that. So, all to say, yeah, it's not when I would ask someone on a date. So these dates, really be careful. Kind of just do like make pancakes for the billionth time. Do something spiritual on December 31st, January 1st, especially January 4th and the 5th, January 13th and the 14th, January 19th and the 20th. So again, I'm going to list these below afterwards, but these are other some important things to kind of bob and weave around if, say, you're trying to start a big project, sign up for a whole new quest, like sign up for a whole new series of gym classes or something. Like maybe don't do it on one of these days. So I hope I'm getting the point across. Void of course moons. I think that's all of my overall things. Before I get into the details. Oh, we're having a Mercury-Mars conjunction this month as well. So this is more January 13th through the 20th. We're gonna have Mercury and Mars snuggling up together. That's the wrong word. Neither of these planets snuggle. They're more the sciency, smarty pants, litigating type. Uh, Precision with words, effect with words, putting in effort with your plans and mind and ideas. It's very like a good configuration for doing some heavy lifting with your brain, cognitive labor, if you will. And that's going to be especially strong around January 13th through January 20th. This is also a week when I want us to be, or I'm going to be more careful with my words. So the classic kind of sharp words, fighting, conflict because of ideas, plans, or words. That also could be going on. So mind yourself, do your best. And that is going to be, and also know like that's also a great week if you need to do a bunch of like cognitive heavy lifting and get a bunch of work done with your brain. That's a great week for that from the 13th to the 20th. And then a little bit different of a vibe, a little bit different energy. Mercury is going to keep going and they're going to meet Venus. And that is going to be more the case toward the end of the month, like January 23rd through January 31st. Then we're going to have Mercury. Same thing with words, ideas, uh, planning, any kind of thing with the mind or thinking, communicating. And that's going to be meeting a planet that's about fun, delight, what looks good, what sounds good. Really great for poetry, creativity, having conversations and having them happen really diplomatically or with kindness versus with sharpness with Mars. So, depending on your needs in the month of January, know that conversationally, things are going to be like more intense, kind of sharper in the first part of January, and then things round out and get a bit softer or maybe just a bit more connecting and I guess, yeah, diplomatic more at the end of January. So that those are some things to note. Both are very good for both Venus and Mars and Mercury meeting all of this energy. It's very passionate and creative and generative. It's putting together the mind with the motivation, with the desire, and moving toward a thing in some way, shape, or form, or transmuting things, shaping things. Yeah, very interesting energy. We get this, I feel like this happens every year. We get this pile up in the planets. Seems to be happening a lot. So this year is no different. In January, February, we're going to get an Aquarius pile up. Um, and then I think maybe last general thing to note before we get into the day by day is Pluto and what that might look like. A little bit more about these planets moving through a conjunction with Pluto and Aquarius. So, themes around Pluto include, for better or for worse, good or bad, put that aside, but intensity, power, distortion. We can see things around change. Of course, transformation is a really common Pluto word. Complexity. So, those are some of my Pluto keywords: tension, intensity, control, power, change, distortion. Sometimes there's things that we intentionally do that are intense. You know, whether that's having a job interview, sometimes like family gatherings can be kind of intense. Sometimes certain fun experiences we do can be kind of intense. Physical like exertion, like doing a marathon or something, that's kind of intense. So there can be things that happen that have healthy tension, intentional kind of exposure to these themes. At the same time, in January, if you're noticing like there's a really charged situation or a lot of intensity internally or tension internally, just note that and know that that's kind of a little bit of the quality of the month of January. And each of these planets is going to experience some type of Plutonian energy being mixed with theirs. So, for instance, if we take Venus, Venus and Pluto can be intense experiences around love or romance. Now, intensity is not the same as meaningfulness. I think sometimes we get confused and think, oh, that was very intense. It must be meaningful. Sometimes it's just intense. So keep that in mind. This can also be very transformative experiences around relationship. That can be all kind and come out in so many ways. If Venus is art and beauty, it can be transformative experiences around those things, change around the art, love, beauty, and our perception of what is beautiful. It could be intense experiences around beauty. Maybe you're getting a tattoo, you know? So all kinds of different planetary archetypes are going to be mixing with Pluto this month. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time with Sun, Mercury, and Mars as we meet each of those. But I just want to give a little example. I know that it's going to come out in ways that are neutral, chosen, unchosen, intentional, unintentional, all kinds of ways. I think that's it. Oh, and I did forget there is a You know what? I think I had two different dates of interest. I just found another one and there's so many more things on it. I'm gonna say them again just for posterity. So the first of the month, Mercury entering Capricorn. Oh yeah, I did this prep when Mercury was retrograde. That's really funny. We had our Cazimis and the Cancer full moon in the first week of January. We've got some ingresses. On the 19th, Sun enters Aquarius. On the 19th, we have a Venus-Pluto conjunction. Yeah, I think the only other thing I missed was there's a Mars-Pluto conjunction on January 27th. So that would be another one worth noting because Mars-Pluto conjunction would definitely be so around the 26th, 27th. Take extra care of yourself. Move a little slower. Take your time. If things are feeling kind of intense, um, know to do what you can to slow things down or take a break. I think with that, I'm ready to get into the play-by-play here, but I'm going to check on the chat. Nah, you're not late. You're right on time. Welcome. And of course, if anyone has any questions, let me know. And if I skip over any dates you want me to look at, let me know as well. Okay, so the first of the month. How is January starting? We're going to be doing a bunch of parties, probably. There's probably going to be a bunch of New Year's parties on sometime this week. I know I'm doing something tomorrow night. It's fine. It's not my favorite chart. It's a void of course moon. So if for whatever reason it's kind of a quiet night, just a little bit more chill, maybe it's just not quite as boisterous as you're used to. Don't take it personally if you're like the host or hostess. The energy is very talkative, but it's not like super rambunctious. So I think the conversation will be flowing freely and finely. We got a Gemini moon for all of our New Year's Eve gatherings, but it is a void of course moon. So it's hard to kind of put things together during those times. Granted, for what it's worth, a lot of the planning, inviting will have happened prior to the void of course moon. So maybe it'll be just fine. But if the energy is a little muted for any reason, don't take it personally. Um, let's see, the first day. This is a day on January 1st to not hand in any applications. I usually mention like three of these a month, three or four of these a month, wherever the moon is square, opposed, or conjunct Saturn, Neptune. These are the days where we are not handing in applications, not hopefully putting a final signature on anything important because it could be rejected, which I don't want for people, especially if you're looking for assistance or aid or something like that. So that's on the 1st of January. Just sit tight. And I would really wait until January 2nd after about 1:09 in the morning Central Time, 7:09 in the morning Universal Time on January 2nd. After that, we're done with the void of course moon. If you really want to kind of fine tune when you begin all your endeavors for the new year, for me, I decided to wait until this moon was past 14 degrees. I wanted it past this opposition with Mars, which is, I mean, all day on the third. They're pretty much past that. Particularly after, let's just say like 7 a.m. Central Time on the 3rd, on January 3rd on Saturday. 7 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, and after. That's when we're in the clear, the weather is better for signing up for that class or beginning your big 2026 whatever thing. Um, Much better luck. Get the moon away from Mars a little bit. So yeah, sleep in if you're in the in the Western Hemisphere. The later in the day, the better, because we're just gonna have the moon moving more and more into Jupiter. So final answer, just chill the first couple days of the year. And then on the 3rd of January, we are going to have a full moon. That's going to be at 4:02 a.m. Central Time, so in the wee hours. And it's a very busy, active sky. Everything is plugged into this. Like all of the planets can see what's going on with this lunation. And it's in these middle parts of Cancer and Capricorn. So we've got this energy of beginning. We've got the dissolving of certain boundaries with Saturn and Neptune ruling over the sun. We've got a dissolving of a lot of things over the last couple years, really. It's been like a year, 2 year process of certain things, kind of slowly parts of structures of life going away so that new structures in life can come in. And now we're into the new and full moon that are in these very starting and beginning types of signs. So something might be more of like a long-term, long game thing opening up here. With Capricorn, there's usually this question of the long-term plan, the long-term strategy. Um, with Cancer, the concern is much more moment to moment with the needs of the body. So when we put them together, we can really start to structure something that can be a nice container to get our needs met and to make sure we're taken care of in the ways that we need to be. So whatever's trying to unfurl in January, it's such a good opportunity to reset. And as you reset things, kind of try them in a new way, doing it in a way that has the long term in mind and that really takes care of your needs in a soft, accepting, nurturing manner without judging them too much. So that whatever you are planning that is long term, it can be sustainable and it can feel comfortable for the long term. So that's a little bit of the energy of the full moon. If I'm looking at it from the aspect or from the perspective of the Decans and Austin Coppock's work, he talks about, very much the two of, or sorry, the Three of Cups, thinking about the coming together of a small group of people, smaller conversations, very protected, safe, enclosed space that he's describing. It could be protective, kind of protective perspective with whatever is coming forth in January. We can get defensive with Cancer in that way of trying to protect, but it doesn't have to be like defensive. The middle part of Capricorn is very ambitious. Austin Coppock talks about this as, Mars, Venus co-ruling this place, which both are very passionate, constructive forces when you put together that ambition with what is beautiful or desired. Project managing the self, putting resources together. So that's very much the energy. It just feels like the word constructive I use a lot in general to just describe things that are successful, satisfying, favorable outcomes versus difficult ones that we don't want. But this is really like the crux of that word, like building and building something with a softness in mind. So that's a vibe. It's a fine looking it's a fine looking moon. Right after it, the full moon meets Mars. It's going to meet a few planets, but once it gets out of its bond, who is it meeting after that? Not and nothing for a while. Once it gets 15 degrees away from that opposition from the sun, the moon is going to be in Leo and kind of just left to its own devices for a little bit before getting in touch with the Earth trine. So I would say whatever does start or whatever you're kind of coming to some realization about what this full moon or sharing or whatever's coming to completion, if there's no like feedback or response for a day or two, that's fine. I wouldn't worry too much if there's kind of like if this is a slow start, that's okay. There's actually a couple reasons, especially if I think about, and our next topic of discussion is going to be the Venus-Mars Cazimi. And that's another thing where there's some beginning energy and some resetting energy that is also part of kind of this longer 3 month thing that we will see more in March, like how that's going to turn out. So it does, not just because it's winter in the northern hemisphere, but it does feel like kind of a slower start to things, even though it's a constructive start to things. I think that's my final answer on the full moon. So any questions about that before we move on? Okay, everyone's doing grand. So the next order of business here is another void moon. So this one is on January 4th, 5th. And that's another reason for what I was saying about there might be kind of, if you're looking for feedback, say, usually on a full moon, people are like sharing, their content or whatever. This would be a bit of a slow response to that, or not getting as much feedback as you were expecting, but it might just be delayed slightly. So then after that void moon on the 4th and 5th, it's kind of like goes from a lot of busyness on like the third, second and third look really busy. And then we get into this other little void that might feel a little quieter. And then on the 6th, we're going to have our Venus Cazimi. So Venus is direct. So this means this is her superior conjunction with the sun. So Venus is like as far away from the Earth as they can be. They're like the sun is, I believe, if I'm thinking about this correctly, I think that there's a yeah, I think the sun is between the Earth and Venus. Um, it can be this moment of reset. It's not quite the rebirth, so I'm not going to use that word for Venus. I'm actually going to use the word rebirth for the Mars Cazimi because that is the kind of the restart of the Mars-Sun relationship. Venus is a little different. Their relationship with the sun is different than Mars and Jupiter. Venus's relationship with the sun is a little more like Mercury's, where these faster planets, they more frequently are going to be meeting the sun. And Venus meets the sun in two different forms, as a direct Venus and as a retrograde Venus. The Venus retrograde sun conjunction, that is more of their rebirth point, where they're going through this whole underworld journey. They really get born again as they rise out of the underworld. It's this whole thing. That is not what's happening right now. That being said, on the 6th of January, this is a time when Venus is still going to be moving through the fires of the sun. And it is thought that a planet who's moving through this heart of the sun is almost like purified in some sense, or it's like Venus is meeting this sovereign royal queen or king figure, the sun, who is able to directly meet Venus and express Venus in this very like distilled, purified way. So we're getting like clarity and purity around Venus topics, which are relationship, ethics, fairness, love, beauty. There can be relational discord sometimes. We can have clarity around the difficulty with a relationship during around this first week of January. We can have clarity around any relationship, and it can be, clarity doesn't have to be a difficult thing. It can be all sorts of realizations, but a lot of clarity around relationship, also around any creative projects you have going on, any art projects you have going on. If there's any issues in your life around values, it's like, what is important to me? How do I make this decision? You might have some good luck around January 4th, or sorry, January 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, as we're also going to have a Mars Cazimi that I also think is going to help with making decisions. Values becoming clearer, motivation becoming clearer, decisions becoming clear as Venus and Mars move through the heart of the sun. So again, that's the 6th and the 9th for Mars. So 6th for Venus, the 9th for Mars. And just pay attention to your thoughts around this time. If you can have enough space in your life to slow down enough to pay attention to the internal world, pay attention to synchronicities, omens. That's what I like to do around Cazimi, around these sun and other planet conjunctions. Because it can be times of clarity or insight. And then finally, so around the 6th of January, as the sun and Venus are meeting, if you want to personalize this to your birth chart, so let's say if you're a Pisces rising, this is going to be in your 11th house of friends and groups. This might be relational clarity around friends or groups. So that's possibility number one. Another thing that could be going on is Venus's other areas that they're in charge of. That could be getting this kind of purification, resetting, clarity moment. So for this Pisces rising, their third house of communication, maybe it's clarity around communication and how you want to be communicated with, how you want to communicate. Clarity if you're learning a language or learning something new, anything new. Maybe you have some insights or figure something out around the 6th. This is a place of siblings. So clarity around sibling relationships. The 8th house is around sharing and collaboration. So it could be, any clarity around how you're sharing, how other people's resources are interfacing with you. So there could be, really specific types of understandings coming in around the 6th. And then on the 9th, all very similar discussion, but now it's going to be around Mars. And this is a rebirth for them. And this is something that only happens about once every 2 years. Or is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. Um, and again, it's moments of clarity. It's a resetting moment. And not only for the Capricorn areas, so for this theoretical uh, Sagittarius rising, this could be clarity, resetting, have a rebirth having to do with finances and money in the second house. But then maybe also on the 9th with Mars having this clarity with the sun or this pure expression of Mars, our motivation, our actions, our decisions. Maybe also there's clarity around the 5th house and the 12th house. Mars is stuff. Maybe Mars is having some clarity around romance or creative projects or self-expression or children. Maybe it's for a Sag rising or it's about investment or, what you can spend on creative projects or children. The 12th house is around more what is private or hidden. It can be blind spots. It can also be suffering, our navigation of suffering, which of course lends itself to the 12th house spirituality. It's very much your internal landscape, the 12th. So maybe there's a lot of insight, clarity around some of those regularly kind of murky 12th house things. Maybe there's clarity or insight for Sagittarius risings around their spiritual practices or what they need to take care of their mental, emotional, or spiritual health. So I can get specific. It's gonna depend on your rising sign. But also the Capricorn house topics as well are going to be affected by these Cazimis. So that is a huge signature. And then what I was mentioning before, kind of the longer story here, these slower starts for more of these longer term things that might be opening up at the beginning of the year. These planets, Mars and Venus, when they're within 15 degrees of the sun, they are invisible. We can't see them in the sunrise or sunset. So that means that whatever they're doing, it's not as easy for us to notice what's going on there. That's why I'm recommending people slow down and if you're too busy, you're not going to have time to think about these things or introspect. But know that, it's kind of like any new beginning, any seed, it's like underneath the dirt. You can't see it, before it sprouts up enough out of the soil for you to see it. But that doesn't mean there wasn't, growth happening beforehand. But if we fast forward to March, April, we're going to see that Venus is going to get far away from the sun. And then we'll see what was that reset about? What do we, after that insight or clarity, what now of the Venus things in my chart? Similarly, Mars is going to become visible. So with that rebirth, what has come forth? What is coming forth out of these new beginnings? And we're going to be able to see much more in March and April after Venus and Mars become visible again. So the beginning of maybe some longer stories are happening in January. Not just because it's the beginning of the Gregorian year, but also Cazimi's. That brings me to my next point, which is going to be some Chiron stuff. But before I do, let me check on the chat. Hello, Cindy. It's good to see you. Always love to see all these familiar names. All right, so on the 10th-ish, yeah, it was the moon. I was following the moon. And the moon is going to touch in with this Chiron Jupiter T square. Maybe we can call it a grand, yeah, let's call it a grand cross. We've got the sun, Venus, Mars. So this is a lot. This feels like a lot. Um, January 10th is gonna, I think, be a very interesting day. Maybe January 9th, 10th, as the moon locks in with a lot of different things. It could be healing, it could be transformative, but there are some pointy parts of this. Chiron can be not comfortable sometimes. Mars is behaving well. They're fine, but they're still Mars. They're still pointy. Pluto is not too far away. So this could be like a mind your own business day or just kind of a take care of yourself extra type of day. Yeah, then the Venus Chiron square is happening pretty much all in the same configuration on the 11th, around earlier in the day on the 11th in the Western hemisphere that perfects. So be careful around relationship around the 10th or 11th. This is not like this is where the joke fails for sure. Don't tell the potentially not good joke around mid-January. Definitely the 10th through the 14th, which really kind of starts to get us into that period of time where Mercury and Mars are getting close. So I know that I said watch your words from the 13th to the 20th of January, but I'm going to actually extend that. I'm going to say watch your words from the 10th of January to the 20th of January. I'm extending that because before Mercury really gets into an adherence within 3 degrees by body of Mars, before that, we have the moon locking into a bunch of things that could also be prickly, a little complicated. And then we have another void moon on the 13th and 14th. So maybe nothing will come of it. A girl can dream. Um, so yeah, 13th is not when to hand things in or begin things because we have a void moon. I also missed one of my don't hand in your application dates. That's going to be on the 8th of January. Please do not hand in any paperwork that is very important. So January 8th, don't hand in immigration paperwork or the job application or the housing application. Wait until, I'll tell you exactly. Wait until after 6:15 p.m. on Thursday, January 8th. So effectively just wait till Friday the 9th if you can. But if you can't, wait till Central Time, 6:15 p.m. on Thursday the 8th. Then after that, you're fine. And then we've got that Grand Cross, and then we've got Mercury Mars, and then a void moon. Is there good news? Do I have good news? Geez, it's been tough lately. I just haven't. Uh, I will say if you're a cardinal sign, like in general, the month of December and January, the months of December, January, you've got both benefics in the cardinals. We got both Venus and Jupiter in there. So that's really nice. That's really nice for cardinal planets. If you have cardinal planets natally in Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, you've got two benefics in there from December 25th. So now until January 17th. So cardinal signs enjoy between December 25th and January 17th. You've got a little bit more support, help, softness, better outcomes, hopefully, for those planets. The Mercury-Mars conjunction perfects on the 18th, just so everyone's clear on that. So that's going to be the spiciest with words around the 18th of January. But also, again, like the mind and the cognitive faculties, the ability to just, yeah, think through things, problem solve, plan are very, very good at this time around mid-January. This is also, I mean, way better January. I know it's after the fact for a lot of people, but buying and selling and traveling and mailing of packages should all go better after January 2nd. Just getting Mercury out of Sagittarius. Mercury in Sagittarius is great for symbolic language, poetry, reading omens, doing this kind of work. Um, Scientists, there's a lot of scientists I've found, or people in the sciences who have kind of this big Mercury and Sagittarius brain that can just take in so much stuff and kind of like bring it together. But for like most Mercury purposes, it's not the best, for commerce. So that stuff all improves after the first. But yeah, again, Mercury, Mars together, then like planning, problem solving, working through just really practical, reasonable kind of stuff, or working through things in a really practical, reasonable, logical way. That is so online, like very well in the middle of January. So have fun with that. Use that to your how you need to. And then I think the next most interesting thing, Venus trine with some of these outers, Venus trine and sextile on the 14th. This was another good thing, or at least cool looking thing. Uh, nope, not that. Venus is going to be meeting the outer planets, and this can be really good for creativity, connecting with people in a way that's fun or new or spiritual. Yeah, it's looking, within reason. Pluto's around. There's some other stuff going on in the sky. But if you've got creative things to do, or you need to brainstorm or really think outside the box, or if you just want to have fun doing new things in relationship, that could be something that goes well around January 14th. And then I said the 15th. No, I'm going to now. The 15th and 16th are the next days to not hand in your application. So do not hand in your application on January 15th, because I don't want it landing on someone's desk the next day on the 16th either. Wait until Yeah, actually, this clears up pretty early on the 16th. If you can just wait, hand in stuff on Friday, like after 6:45 a.m. Central Time, 7:45 a.m. Eastern Time. After that, it's better. After that, it's better. Before that, more rejection possibilities. And then we have Venus entering Aquarius. So, of course, the first thing that's going to happen there is they're going to meet Pluto. All these planets, as soon as they get into Aquarius, they're going to be in adherence with Pluto. So this is where everyone's on dating notice. Be careful around dating new people. I want you to have a little bit of healthy stranger danger from January 17th through what did I say? Just the rest of no. No, I won't do that to people. I want Venus like 3 degrees away. I mean, like Mercury's still around. So like you've got let's say you're a Sagittarius rising, or you're an Aquarius rising, and you've got Mercury ruling over your fifth house, or Mercury ruling over your seventh house. Then then I want you to have stranger danger about new people, and everyone's on dating notice for Sag risings, like till the 25th. But what if you're a Libra rising and maybe Mars rules your seventh? Maybe your third house or fifth house is ruled by Mars. Be careful around people pretty much the rest of January. So it's really going to vary depending on which of these planets rules which part of your chart and is in charge of stuff. So, maybe the blanket statement then, if I just lump that over everyone, that as these planets are moving over Pluto and there are, themes coming up around, and maybe distortions around control, power dynamics, people being controlling, people being deceptive or coercive. Those are all Pluto things. I don't like any of these planets being around there for the seeding of anything. I want all these planets to get away from Pluto. So then that pretty much happens around, I get 3 degrees between Mars and Pluto by January 31st. And the month's a wrap. So careful out there, everyone. I don't want to make you paranoid, but at the same time, it's like this is how I use astrology. If I have dated as an adult, and this is what I would be doing if I were an adult. I would not be going anywhere alone with anyone to an undisclosed location or something during this period of time. Like if you can choose to. And so then I think if we're thinking about if you're in America right now, it's not safe out there for a lot of our friends and neighbors. Uh, January is a month to really protect yourself extra. I know everyone out there already is, and everyone's doing their best, but keep at it. Like carry your whistle, you know? Because yeah, Pluto's going to be around, and it makes me nervous when you have people around who are abusing power, because that Pluto can be that. Uh, let's see. Yeah, I don't have anything anything good to say about Pluto. Although, to be fair, everything is always so context dependent. And, for instance, Pluto is on my natal Venus, and they're only getting closer to my natal Venus, who is at 5 degrees of Aquarius. And so, it's like, what are you going to change? What's already here? Because if what's already here was not good, then maybe sometimes Pluto changes things that are not good into more favorable situations. Maybe what the transformation is from something that's been consistently unfavorable to something that could be favorable. So it's always context dependent, but I am here more in my Mars and Scorpio capacity of threat detection. And what kind of threat level do we need? Say in January, there are some red flags. Be careful. Venus enters Aquarius on the 17th of January. Now, let's talk about that without thinking about Pluto. Let's think about what it's like to have Venus in this first part of Aquarius. This is what I call the MacGyver decan. It's very resourceful. It's the place where you've gone away from the established structures and order of Capricorn. And Aquarius, you are almost rejecting certain things about society. We get that person who's more counterculture or subculture because they're rejecting whatever they came in with. So there can be a little bit of that, but with that comes kind of this innovation, this ingenuity. When I put Saturn and Venus together, you get that creativity, or no, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. Yeah, necessity, not having enough, being the thing that is needed to poke along ingenuity. Kind of that stress, that's that stressful thing, making someone more creative than they might be otherwise. And just being resourceful and using what's around them, doing things differently, doing things in an unexpected way. That's, of course, all of Aquarius. So now Venus is going to be doing relationship, beauty, love, fairness, ethics in a way that is really unique and maybe not what is expected. So have fun with that. And she'll be in there for until February 10th. And then we're going to get, I mean, there's other things going on in Pisces, but we'll have a Pisces Venus. And we haven't had one of those in a year, and that is always nice. So let's all get our Venus buns to February 10th. On the 18th, we have a Capricorn New Moon. So before I move on to that, let me check the chat. Oh, we got someone who's applying to college. Thank you for increasing my list of possible applications. Educational applications. Yeah. Don't hand in those either on those days. I'm gonna review them again. Uh, Yeah, I'm not sure when deadlines are, but I don't like January 8th for handing in college applications. Please don't send it in January 8th or January 15th or 16th. I don't really like those days for handing in a college application. More the 15th. Later in the day on the 16th is fine. And then last day to not hand in a college application is going to be January 22nd. Uh, no, let's just say January 22nd and 23rd. Don't like those days. And then finally, uh, January 29th. Don't hand it in. Wait till the next day. Wait till the 30th. So that's kind of bob and weave around those. Um, Sag Rising, applying to college. Got waitlisted for her number one choice. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, gosh. So she was going through all of that too, maybe during some of the weather that we've had over the last few months, which has been interesting. We had eclipses and retrogrades, so a little bit unstable. Yeah, not really, without seeing more of her chart or more of the situation. But if they are a Sag rising, where's Saturn? Oh, yeah, Saturn's going to be moving into their fifth. Well, I imagine that they're going to be studying somewhere because it's going to be harder to have fun. So they're going to be working harder, it looks like. I think a lot of the Sag risings, when I see Saturn in the fifth, it's like, what is the impediment to fun? What is the impediment to leisure and having a good time? And when Saturn is in there, it's like, because you have a bunch of work to do. So, I mean, if that's the case, that's February 13th. That kind of shifts. And then I don't know what the timelines are, but we are really getting to this point that I've been talking about. I feel like for like 2 years, I've been talking about this thing where I'm waiting desperately for Saturn to get away from Neptune. Like I want Saturn to get out of that fog because we're going to have so much more clarity around certain areas of life. So there's more clarity coming in March of 2026. That's being like my most hopeful. I know more conservative astrologers might kind of like scoff at me, but if I watch like even by March, April, we're getting like some 5 degrees away from Neptune. So then for like that Sag rising, some Saturn ruled third house themes of education probably going to be more clear after March, but that doesn't help you right now. So yeah, best of luck. Hello, David. Nice to see you. All right. Next lunation. And I guess, okay. I want to actually stop for a second and ask because I have a couple people here. I have a few people here. And I want to poll. I want to do a quick poll. And you don't have to respond to this if you don't want to. Um, but when I say Mercury retrograde, like, do you have like a tendency toward being concerned about it? Or are you pretty like neutral? It's a mixed bag? Or are you like, oh, it's times for learning? Like, because that's more the positive one. I want to know, like, what my viewers, what their tendency is around their attitudes toward Mercury retrogrades or retrogrades in general. Because I tend to just like push back against, like, if people are being too positive about Mercury retrogrades, I tend to push back on that and say, oh, well, actually, they can be tough. Or if people are like only talking about the difficult things with retrogrades, I will push back and be like, well, they can be sometimes neutral or even constructive sometimes. Because it is such a mixed thing and it's going to be all of the above. Historically, anciently, like the Hellenistic astrologers were pretty clear that retrogrades were not good, were not a good time. But more my hope comes from observation. I've read thousands of charts at this point. Um, I've seen, plenty of decent examples. Like I always discover a button. I discovered a button on my trunk during the last Mercury retrograde. I had no idea that I've had my car for like 10 years. Like I had no idea that button was there. Sometimes cute things come back from the past during a retrograde, like my dragon, my origami dragon that came back from the past during a retrograde. So that was cool. But also I've been things keep coming in. Like we're still coming out of the post. When did Mercury just station? I think we're still coming out of our shadow, aren't we? Or are we already done with that? No, they just stationed on 29th. Where did they station? No, they are out of their shadow. But it happened a few times during the last one. I was like, is it still happening? Ex-boyfriend stuff keeps coming up for me. Stuff from the past I don't like reminders of exes. Not fun. So I don't know. I'm kind of all over the map. I just want to see if other people are also all over the map because I had like so many complaints about like the fact that I started a video with Mercury retrograde. I'm like, geez, I didn't know I was gonna traumatize people. Okay, we got someone who leans toward positive. Someone likes them because they have it natally. See, and that's what that's kind of a lot of my observation too. Although there's still going to be difficult things. Retrogrades, if you ask any ancient author, they're going to be difficult at times. But it also is going to depend on who your Time Lord is. If activated stuff is prodding at any of the Mercury things. But okay, this is good to know. I feel like I need to, I mean, maybe it's like the Capricorn in me, but I love forms and I love surveys. And I should just make a survey of these things and send it out and see if people want to take a fun survey of like, what do you think about this transit? Does this freak you out? How do you feel about death? Should I not be talking about that? Because, as much as I'm Aries in my third house, I want to be expressive how I want to be expressive, but I am Venusian. I want to know how it's going to land. I am interested in how people are receiving these things. I often arrange a lot of my work. I've noticed this because of some of the feedback that I got on some recent work. I use the Chaldean order a lot to structure my info. I go from like the order of fastest planet to slowest or slowest planet to fastest or like outermost to innermost or innermost to outermost or something. And I have timestamps, so that helps. I mean, timestamps are there. So that's a thing that I always forget. Anyway, big digression. Survey could be fun because it's kind of like I don't know how because there's so much different philosophies, so many different philosophies people are coming in with when they're then picking up that astrological lens. It's really hard for me to know over here because my philosophies are not going to be the same as yours, obviously. Yeah, and someone's like, the scarier the better in terms of my forecast because they like to plan. And I have a Mars in Scorpio, so like that's my big threat detector. And that's what I was as a pharmacist, your threat detector, you're looking for problems. And I have to remind myself, there also is good weather to do fun things like spiritual stuff or artistic stuff. For instance, like the Venus Mercury conjunction at the end of the month is really good for poetry and writing and creative writing, like especially the last 10 days of January. So I try to remember good things as well. But big digression. Thanks, everyone. That was fun. Let's talk about the Capricorn New Moon. Speaking of, yeah, what are we building and how are we building it? That is happening at the very end of Capricorn on the 18th. And similar to, we had this lunation at the end of Sagittarius. What I like about this one too is that the sun and moon are separating from this aspect with Saturn. So very close sextile with Saturn, but it's a sextile. Saturn rules this lunation and it speaks to those Saturnian delays or challenges being in the past. Now, the sun and the moon are moving into Neptune, so there could be a little lack of realism or maybe rose-colored glasses, although I don't know. I'm not too worried about that because there's just so much Saturn around. But there could be some kind of hope or vision for the future after some setbacks or challenges. Mars is here, really helping out. Anytime there's a planet that's exalted in domicile, all the other planets in that sign benefit. So Mercury, Sun, Moon are all benefiting from Mars being in here. And then they also are being seen by Jupiter, which helps stabilize, support. Now, Jupiter is a little reluctant to help because Jupiter looks over and it's like seeing a bunch of people over in like, they're like asking you for help in a language you don't understand. And it's a little hard for Jupiter to help them, but I think there is still some support and help there. So it's a decent new moon. I would say, it's pretty close to Pluto. They're out of sign, but there could be some intensity. Venus is right there with Pluto at this time, mid-month. So I'm not sure what is being reborn here or what chapters might be closing, what new chapters might be opening, but it looks like a decent sky to be closing and opening chapters under. Everyone's still on dating notice, and yeah, it's potent because of that Mercury-Mars presence. This is a good one for thinking, planning, problem solving, strategizing with that long-term or sustainable vision in mind. Looks pretty constructive. And the third decan of Capricorn, very much about managing what you've built, continuing it onward. It's Four of Pentacles. So governance, this comes from Austin Coppock's this comes from his workshop on his 36 Faces work. It's not from the book proper because I do not have the book. Hoping for next time. But this part of Capricorn is likened to the Four of Pentacles. So governance of existing structures, lots of things to do, judgments to make. It's a place of edicts, decrees, making laws for yourself, maybe even. So kind of a serious quality, a very material world, practical kind of energy to this. I dig it. And then we have another void moon. So I would let this new moon be kind of quiet and not necessarily when I would be charging ahead with whatever we are planning, whatever might want to begin or new chapters unfurling. Let it be a slow start, chill, because then like the next day, it's from 8:02 p.m. on the 18th Central Time, 9:02 p.m. Eastern Time, through to January 22nd at 10:40 a.m. Central Time, 11:40 a.m. Eastern Time. That's a void moon. So especially the 18th and the 19th, do low impact, easy, familiar stuff. And then on the 19th, we're going to have the sun entering into Aquarius. Of course, we've got an adherence with Pluto. So now, powerful expression, powerful understandings about the identity. The sun is so much about our spirit, our will, who we are at our core. And so Pluto being around can be like this very deep kind of experience of selfhood, kind of a potent experience around identity. So it doesn't have to be a difficult thing. However, if there is a lot of expression that wants to come out, just making sure you have a nice space to do that or someone to do that with. Any power dynamics during I mean, just like all of January, Pluto stuff, power dynamics, people dealing with the holding of power, people who are holding authority, those who don't, being empowered versus disempowered. All of these questions come up around Pluto. So as much as possible, making sure that, as far as you're concerned, everyone around you in your life, that we're honoring people's agency and what they want and their consent, being really careful around all of those topics for January. Really making sure that as many people as possible feel empowered, not disempowered. That's the goal with Pluto around. And oftentimes just naming it, sometimes, maybe depending on what's going on, the sun can come in and shine a light on something. So there could be a shining of light on some power situation or some power dynamic. And sometimes that can be really helpful because power often it happens when it's secret or not seen or private. And so talking about it, illuminating it can actually help strip that power of its source. Um, Sun in Aquarius. The sun doesn't love to be there. I mean, the sun doesn't exactly love Capricorn either. These are like the furthest places away from the sun and the brightness of or the literal sun and the brightness of the summer in the northern hemisphere. Capricorn and Sat and Aquarius are the places of Saturn. They are winter in the northern hemisphere. So the sun, it's not their favorite place to be. So, this could also be Pluto putting a lid on trying to repress. I can never remember because I'm not a psychologist. Repression, suppression, which one is which? Uh, and then, of course, there's oppression. So there could be an oppression of some kind of expression of self during this time, around the 20th, 23rd or so. If you're out there, like, fighting the good fight, doing what you can, this would be a time where things might get kind of intense out there in the field, if you know what I mean. If you're protesting or anything like that, this would be a really good time. Last third of January, just be extra careful, take care of yourself, do all the usual precautions that one might do if they're getting into some good trouble. Uh, be careful out there. Everyone's still on dating notice, and potent week for introspection. I did put that in my notes. It could be a potent week in terms of conversations. And then the moon is going to be in Aquarius on the 20th, 20th, 19th, 20th, on the 19th, 20th. So we're really going to get a feel for what's going on in Aquarius on the 19th and 20th when the moon is in there. And then on the 20th, Mercury enters Aquarius. So now the power, control dynamics. Mercury is here to put words to it, to talk about it with words and ideas. Um, if there's potent experiences around identity or self or will, Mercury is here to make sense of it, to introspect using more of that like cognitive labeling function and faculty, just like thinking about it a lot. Thinking about it a lot. Uh, that's a good thing to note. So with Pluto, sometimes I notice, and this is my own thing, so take with a grain of salt, but I notice that Pluto transits feel sticky in the mind to me. If one of my Buddhist practices is slowing down, watching my mind, watching the contents go in and out. I notice around Pluto transits, certain things just want to hang out much longer, or they just keep coming in repetitively, repetitively. Granted, there's probably some DSM-5 language about that, but here's another labeling system where, Pluto makes things kind of sticky. So if you're noticing around January or end of January, why do I, keep going back to this thing? Or why am I getting kind of sucked in or I'm kind of focusing extra, not as able to pull oneself away from something. That kind of gravitational magnetic pull of Pluto, almost like a little black hole, that can be happening. So my kind of shorthand for all of that is stickiness. So watch out for stickiness in January. And then we get a Mercury Cazimi, so clarity with words or how things work, the details of something, clarity around commerce, buying or selling, travel. Might be a decent day actually to try to do some travel plans. Um, Lots of clarity around Mercury ruled topics. So if you're whatever your rising sign is, look to the houses that are ruled by Mercury, and those topics also will be a little bit more clear around January 21st, 20th, 21st. And when I put together that clarity of a Mercury Cazimi or in Pluto, more potent realizations, more potent clarity, more powerful kinds of, cognitive experiences. So the good news here is as much as there's a lot going on in some of these air signs, on the 21st and 22nd, the moon gets into Pisces, which sometimes can be a little bit more comfortable, especially with this nice mutual reception with Jupiter. So take care of yourself, lean into taking care of yourself, slowing down a bit, coming back into the body, getting a little out of the mind, more on the 21st and 22nd of January, if there's just been a lot of thinking. And then Mars is going to enter Aquarius on the 23rd, just as the Sun and Pluto are meeting. So the 23rd is another take care of yourself extra, maybe mind your own business day, just until you feel out the room. Feel out the room first. Feel out the vibes before you dive in, because there's a new set of vibes on the 23rd, and they might be kind of heavy. Uh, and the Mars-Pluto adherence begins then, and then Mars is going to meet Pluto by the 27th. So then the kind of loudest maybe of all of these, Venus, Mercury, Sun, Mars, Pluto. I mean, before we had Pluto being intense, before we had Pluto being highly energetic, it was Mars. Before we had Pluto being transformation, it was usually Mars. So now we're putting, two of those kind of highly energetic things together. And at best, people can just get a ton of work done. It's like putting in this mountains worth of effort when Mars and Pluto are together because there's this dialing up of intensity in the amount of action or effort we can do. So I've seen that happen before, just lots of intense efforts. So take it easy, like don't overdo it around 27th, 28th of January physically. Mars with Pluto can tend to want to get stuck on doing, stuck on acting, stuck on going. So, especially on the 27th, 28th, if you don't want to stop, you might need to like make yourself stop, especially if you need to drink water or rest or something like that. Now, worst case, this is pretty much, it can be violent. So, protect yourself out there. This is not a day that I would be picking fights or, yeah, this is not a day I would be picking fights. So be careful the 27th and the 28th with the Mars-Pluto conjunction. I mention these periodically, these times where it's pretty much the only time I'll use the word violent, but it's anytime Mars is conjunct, square, or opposite of Pluto. So here we've got the conjunction. But any of these hard aspects between Mars and Pluto, there's a lot of intensity, a lot of energy, maybe a really intense anger, irritation, or rage, and there can be violence. And I think that's, besides Neptune, I think those are the main points about the end of this month. Neptune enters Aries on the 26th, so let me actually back up. So until 2038 now, we're going to have Neptune in Aries. They have been in Pisces for 14 years. So, it's worth noting, wherever you have Pisces in your birth chart, Neptune is leaving that on the 26th of January. And for me, that's my place of money, resources, needs. And so Neptune leaving, I am actually very much looking forward to it because I don't love confusion or uncertainty with Neptune around my money, around what I need, around collaboration and sharing in that second and eighth axes. Didn't love it. Um, for like a Gemini rising, Neptune is getting out of your place of career. It's leaving your place of life path, which could be really great because who wants confusion and uncertainty in their general life direction? Most people don't. Now, to be fair, Neptune is also creativity in the way that it dissolves borders and separations and it helps us bring different things together. So it can be really creative in that way. Neptune is really good with intuition and spirituality and glamour. And so we are going to lose some of those things. So, maybe your public life is going to be a little less glamorous. Maybe your career is going to be less spiritual, or your life path is a little less spiritually inclined. You had fun. It was a good 14 years. That's coming to an end. It's the end of an era. And now Neptune is moving into a whole new bucket of life topics. So for a Gemini rising, for instance, Neptune is moving into the place of friends and groups. So maybe you get more spiritual friends. Maybe groups or things with friends become confusing sometimes. So all of those things are possible. And again, that's going to be till 2038 that Neptune is going to be in a new sign. So that's a big change. And then that's our second to last outer planet that needs to change signs before locking into this whole outer planet thingy of sextiles and trines. So Uranus at the end of April is going to change signs, and that'll be the last piece of this outer planet puzzle locking into place. But Neptune is going to be our second to last one, and that's on the 26th. And then I mentioned on the 27th, the Mars-Pluto conjunction, take it easy. And again, to just say it one more time, January 23rd through the end of the month, we get this beautiful Mercury-Venus conjunction that's great for relationship and conversations and creativity and art and all of those things, moving toward things that are more fair, ethical, using our words and ideas. So that's a nice note toward the end of the month to help us work through all those other things in the sky. So there might be some intensity, but at least we'll be able to talk about it maybe. And then on the 29th, we get that last time when I don't want you to hand in applications once again. So wait till the 30th. And then the month ends on a pretty nice note. We get a Cancer moon with Jupiter leading us into a Leo full moon. And that's how February is starting, which I'm not going to get into that full moon yet, but there is a Leo new moon or Leo full moon that ushers us from January into February. So I think those are most of the things I saw. I'm sure there's more that I missed. Yeah, there's, maybe I feel like I missed Venus Uranus things a lot. Yeah. No, I mentioned that around the 15th, 16th, 17th. Um, that nice time for art and creativity and spiritual stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was it. Okay. Final answer for January. Any days that I didn't go over that people wanted me to talk about? Last call. Welcome, everyone. Happy New Year. I just talked about Neptune and Aries. Um, I should talk more about Neptune and Aries. Let's talk just a little bit more about it because I mentioned like the change in house topics, but I didn't really riff too much on Neptune and Aries. And it's kind of hard to talk about Neptune and Aries without talking about Saturn, who's also going to be around like very shortly. They change on February 13th, so about 2 weeks after. Then we get Saturn in here, but let's look at Neptune in a vacuum. So now Neptune, if Neptune is art, creativity, spirituality, I should say creativity fuel. It's more like fuel for creativity, but spirituality, one love, inspiration, forgiveness, unconditional love. Those are all Neptune things. Glamour. Now it's happening fast. So fast visioning of the future, fast glamour. Well, we already have fast fashion. Hopefully that doesn't get worse. Um, Spirituality, really quick spirituality, quick to be inspired, quick to be inspired toward action, especially because this is very action oriented. So some of those things could be really great. Quick to feel inspired to act, quick to put something together in a creative way, to move towards some spiritual thing. But we can also imagine all the ways in which speed is not great, especially around spirituality, things that are a little bit murky. Sometimes moving too quickly can get us in trouble. It's kind of like the energy of the convert, when you first learn something that you're really excited about and you want to tell everyone about it all the time, which is usually a little foolish because you don't know enough yet and you just kind of end up putting your foot in your mouth when you realize 5 years later that you probably should have just not said anything. Also with like cults, don't want to run headfirst into one of those. So, anything with spirituality, probably taking your time will help. I just saw this quote and I saw it on the internet and someone said it like it was theirs, but it wasn't. They had taken it from someone else, and I did just find it. Oh, shoot, I can't. I'm gonna try to mem remember it. It is haste conceals what slowness reveals. And it's by Frédéric something, and I'm gonna post it below after this, along with my dates of interest. Uh, Gosh. Can I really not find it? I'm so frustrated. I keep not being able to find this one. But yeah, it's Frederic something. I'm gonna find exactly who it is and I'll put it below. But uh, haste conceals what slowness reveals. When we go really fast, sometimes people go fast because they want to hide stuff. Sometimes they go fast because they don't want you to see things or have a chance to realize stuff. So slowing down, I think very easily we think about relationships like, wow, you know, could have used some extra time. But sometimes you can be with someone for like 20 years and you still have no idea who they are, horrifyingly. But like an apartment, if you're looking at an apartment and the person is rushing you through so that you can't get a good look at all the drawers and stuff, keep your eye on that. I think that's going to be a Neptune and Aries thing, but also a Saturn, Neptune and Aries thing. Also, I guess with the inspiration, I don't want to like naysay that because I mean, God, we could use some action inspired or some inspired action. We could use some action that is inspired by something beautiful as long as we are acting with all of the facts because Neptune can be confusion. So if we're going too fast or acting before we have all the facts, that can be a real problem, right? So we got a lot of this last June, July, August when we had some of these planets dip into Aries for the first time, and we're going to see it again. So it makes me a little nervous for a few reasons. Saturn is going to join them. Um, Saturn is judgment, quick judgment without all the facts. I don't love that. Don't love that one bit. So slowing down, asking questions. Before we had Neptune being deception or camouflage or hiding, sometimes it was Saturn that was deception, trying to keep secret. But Neptune also does that. And here we have both of them. So something that's trying to be concealed and is happening really fast. So I can think about like a billion examples where the US government is doing all of this right now. This is all happening right now. And it's going to keep happening well into 2026. So the speed with which things are happening, not great. Vedius Valens says in Anthology that Aries is hard on in offenders, is hard on offenders, whoever offenders are, because everyone has a different idea about who's offending, or what is the offender. So then when the judgy planet gets into the place that is hard on offenders, and it's like the enforcer of the law, not the Jupiter spirit of the law, but just like the rules and the rule book, and that being enacted in a really harsh, fast way. Now, P.S., if you have Saturn and Aries in your birth chart, and I'm talking about like the worst example of what this does. Most people aren't that, especially if you've been working with it your whole life. Like you found productive, awesome ways. This is quick to take responsibility. We can flip this whole thing on its head and say, quick to take inspired action to be responsible, quick to say no in a good way, quick to take responsibility and be in charge of something, and put definition around something. All of that can be really helpful, especially like in an emergency or when something needs like a really fast response. There can be a lot of cool stuff here that happens. There's a resiliency. It's almost like, I don't know, kind of a weird off-brand version of Scorpio, where it's like you get this martial, like I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do, and then Saturn makes it like lasting and firm and stable. And so you get people who can show up again and again and again. It's like the Terminator. They like just keep coming. I think Austin Coppock has definitely used that. That's an Austin Coppockism for sure. I feel like he said that in the past. I don't know if he was talking, can't remember if he was talking about Pluto and Aquarius. But I'm going to use it for Saturn and Aries. So yeah, it can be great. Yay, resiliency. Yay, like continuing to show up even though it's hard. But this isn't making anyone any nicer or kinder. Or, do I need to clarify? You know what? It's my Mars season. I'm not going to. It's not going to make kindness any better or patience. This is not great for kindness or patience. Like, I imagine people who have this in their birth chart, other things in the birth chart need to swoop in. If you're a super compassionate, soft, squishy person and you've got Saturn in Aries, I guarantee you've got something else in your chart that does that. That does that for you, but it's not this. So, uh, I'm concerned. I usually try to be like, oh, be curious, just be curious. But this is one where I'm like, yeah, I'm curious. Like, I'm curious about a tiger that I know is in some tall grass over there and I want to not get eaten. I'm curious as in, what things do we all need to slow down about, or if other people are going too fast to be like, oh, that's a problem. Um, so yay. What else? Do I have anything else nice to say about Saturn and Aries, Neptune and Aries? Uh, I mean, the possibility is always here when we have Saturn and Neptune conjunct to envision a future, dream this beautiful version of something. And then Saturn is like, how do we make that real? What do we need to do? What people do we need? What money do we need? So it's making real what is the vision. And this has all been in Pisces for a while, which isn't, Pisces is not the most action oriented. It can kind of hang out and just kind of think about it and dream about it for a long time before acting. I'm kind of curious, maybe this imagining and dreaming a better world will be much more actionable or people will be acting on it more in Aries. That could be a cool thing. That could be great. So it's not going to be all bad, but yeah, Aries. It's so youthful. It's really fun in a lot of ways. I've got a lot of Aries stuff. I've got my Jupiter and my lot of fortune, my lot of Eros in there. Everything's ruled by Mars. I love Aries. It has initiative. Something that I have noticed, actually, this is more of a Saturn and Aries thing, is I kept saying, it won't take long. Just do it. It won't take long. This kind of like, be responsible. Do the accountable thing right now. Like, do the thing right now. Is very much initiative. So that quick to be responsibleness, it can be like, you know what? I thought about washing the dishes. I'm just going to do it. It's not going to take that long. So I did notice that quality that was very, very helpful. And then also the ability, Saturn making the boundaries and edges of something and helping to kind of channel this fire. This brings some discipline to what is kind of a wild flame situation. So I think that could be another more constructive, favorable thing. And of course, whatever Neptune and Saturn are doing in here, you can totally put on a shelf the Aries part and know that those planets are going to be touching on certain house topics coming into this new place. And I go about all of this in even more detail. I'm going to link it below afterwards, but you can just explore on my channel. I've got a ton of content. I've got 3 videos. One of them's about Saturn in Neptune. One of them's about Saturn moving into Aries. And then another of them is a rising sign horoscope about Saturn in Aries. So check all that out. I go into much more. Um, any other questions? Any other things people wanted me to look at? Yeah, I mean, so many things are a mixed bag. Looking at 2025, I was actually going through and because every year I try to write out like some goals, some things that I really want to get done for the year ahead. And then I revisit it at the end of the year and kind of do a check-in and see how I did. And I did pretty good. Like, granted, my goals were like very unsexy. They were just like, keep up with this stuff, finish this stuff. And I'm making like a lot of progress and I have been keeping up with things. And yeah, it felt good. I finally was on time with my 2026 content. I feel like last year at the end of 2024, my 2025 content was not the way that I wanted it. I was rushed. It wasn't as in depth as I had hoped for. But the content I made for 2026, I am happy with it. It goes into a lot of depth. I first organize it by how did I do it? I did it by planet. I started with the fastest planet, Mercury, and then I went on. I also did things by month. So I go through like a month by month kind of thing about 2026 and put all of that information about what each planet is doing. And then I lay it out in more of a chronological way. And then I also have rising sign horoscopes. So check those out. I did turn off the comments for reasons I'll get into some other time. But enjoy them. They're there, they're free. It's my labor of love to you to kind of help people usher in the new year. And then also, just again, I'll say it one more time, I am having the 2025 reflection event that is free. There's just an open Zoom link floating on my website right now, but that's going to be on January 3rd at 12:30 p.m. Central, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Come get your chart read, come with the story from 2025. We'll see how it looks astrologically as a fun way to wrap up the year and start the next one. I think that's it. I think that's all my announcements. Thanks, everyone. I hope you all have a great year ahead. I hope you have a good January. I'm very excited about all those Cazimis. Like the Pluto stuff's kind of a lot, but the Cazimis, it's such a fitting way to start a new Gregorian calendar year with a lot of these planets hitting the reset button, having some moments or at least a day or two of clarity, and then knowing that by the time we get to March, April, we see a lot of these planets become visible again, showing us all the things that have been kind of been happening behind the scenes. And then we also know that March, April is about when Saturn gets far enough away from Neptune that some of this uncertainty and lack of clarity burns off. It goes away. Saturn gets more clarity just in time for Uranus to get into a new sign at the end of April. So January's kind of chill. January's fine. I mean, it's not chill. It's Pluto, but it's fine. It's not eclipses. It's not eclipses. It's not a Saturn Mars square. Uh, it's not the most interesting that I had on my map for the whole year. I hope that makes people feel better about the Pluto stuff. Um, I think it could be really just the order of operations. The fact that we had like we're having these Cazimis at the same time as the Pluto stuff. It feels like what is part of all of these new beginnings, what's part of the reset button is because there's something transformative happening. There's some introspective thing that's happening. People are sorting through, untangling some things, I hope, that then are folding into all of this reset Cazimi energy. So it could be really constructive. I'm trying to be hopeful about it. It feels constructive. Okay. I think those are my final thoughts. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening, being here. I love when people are here. It's a nice energy. Also, I just love having the opportunity to answer questions if people have any. The comments will be on this video below if you have any. Check them out, or you can ask there, or you can email me aligninglate@gmail.com if there's any concerns, questions. Oh, and I have a discount code. Oh my goodness. I didn't think I was going to, but then I did one for the end of the year. I gotta look it up. As is tradition. That's a tradition. Where is my discount code? It's Solstice. Solstice. Solstice for 12% off any of my services through the month of January. So until February 1st, essentially, there is a discount code for 12% off any of my stuff. Uh, I think that I think that's it. Yeah. And sign up for my newsletter because that's where all this stuff happens. That's where people find out about all of my events. And I am going to do a quarterly discount code. So I'll do my next one. If the sliding scale isn't something that you want to use, if you need it, but you don't want to use it, I do discount codes. I'll do one around the equinox. So March, sometime around March. Otherwise, I do have a sliding scale, which a lot of people qualify for. So check out my frequently asked questions. I've got it on a couple places on my website, www.aligninglightastrology.com. That's where you can learn more about the sliding scale, all my services, sign up for my newsletter, all the stuff. All right. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a Jurassic 2026. I'll see you at my next thing. I'll see you on the 3rd. I'll see you on the 3rd. Happy New Year, everybody. Come to my reflection time on the 3rd. All right, bye.